Welcome to We Need to Talk Now, presented by AT&T. I'm Alicia J, here with Erica L. Ayala. And we're excited to bring another show to you, but it's a little late this week, and it's my fault because I was in New York covering our broadcast show that we had. It was a great show, so if you haven't seen any of those highlights, go on over to Twitter and check it out for sure. But it's blame it on me. Blame it on me that we're late for it.
We got you. We still here. We showed up.
Yeah, and Swin Cash was actually on that last show, and we want to give her a shout out because today it was announced that she was appointed to be the president of the Women's Sports Foundation. Just give her all the love, like President Cash. I know that's right.
I know that's right.
I know that's right, but really looking forward to seeing what she does there. It says as President Cash takes on a mission-driven role, helping to amplify WSF's voice across sports and culture, inspire the next generation, and build new connections that further the foundation's impact. And then she actually had a quote. I don't know if we have that ready. Thank you, Emma. The Women's Sports Foundation has long been a force opening doors and expanding opportunity for girls and women in sports. As president, I'm honored to build on that legacy by strengthening cultural and intergenerational connections and helping ensure that the doors opened by our trailblazers remain wide for the next generation. I know
that's real. That is so real. I'm so happy for Swin, part of that 2002 UConn team that I was definitely watching growing up in the New York area. And then just getting to know Swin over the years, what she's been able to do in basketball, such a great mind. And great to have her championing women in sports overall with her new appointment.
Yeah, Swin, I have to give her a shout out on every level, and I always will, because, we talk about saying people's names when they're not in the room and helping them to achieve and grow. And she is one of the main reasons why I am here is she said my name for this job and this position. And ultimately I was able to get it and be here with you today, Erica. So
I love that.
Thank you, Swin. And there's no one more deserving. There's no one more deserving, President Cash. Okay?
Let's go.
Come on with it. Be ready for me to call you that every time I see you. But anyway. Well, speaking of Swin Cash, UConn, we have to talk about some women's college basketball takeaways. And Sarah Strong, man, third fastest to 1,000 points in UConn history. When we look, that is insane to think about. This is our second year at UConn. It is absolutely insane. We have seen what she is doing. We see it on the court every night. She's getting better with every game, which is crazy to say because she came in ready, So watching her has been honestly a privilege. So when you think about it in her history, where will her career at UConn rank? And that's a heavy thing.
Yeah,
because it's a lot of players.
It's including right the aforementioned Swin Cash and that 02 team. Y'all know how I feel about that 2002 team. You had Tamika Williams, now Williams Jeter, on that team. Sue Bird, Diana Taurasi, but the list that Strong joins as far as becoming the third fastest is Paige Beckers and Maya Moore. So. That's not even talking about the Stewie years, 4 consecutive championships. So there's a lot of different ways when you come from a program like UConn to make your mark. And I know Paige has alluded to things of that nature. I still think Stewie's, as far as the Mount Rushmore of UConn women's basketball, she's got to have a permanent fixture as far as I'm concerned with the titles that she was able to bring in her 4 years. Maya Moore was just, she's a generational talent, several generations over. I feel like, you plop her in any generation and she probably would still be fantastic. I think, like you said, though, Alicia, we're seeing this early from Sarah Strong. It was coming on strong, if you will, last year in that freshman year. And you saw that this was a UConn team that trusted and at times relied on Sarah Strong. And I think for me, what will be telling is, we saw Paige Beckers, of course, move to the pros. AZ Fudd will inevitably be moving as well. But, she's got some upperclassmen that are still on this team. KK is another great player for UConn, especially defensively and what they're able to do. So I think that time is going to tell, because in theory, right, there'll be every season there will be an opportunity for Strong to take on more. UConn has, they have an embarrassment of riches at times where, she's not necessarily needed to perform. And I remember being at a game when UConn played against Iowa, and Strong had, I think it was about 20, somewhere around 20 points in the first half. And then she really didn't need to score in the second because AZ Fudd got her shot falling. And that's what we're seeing. It's this tag team a lot of the times, which is wild because we're still talking about Sarah Strong's numbers popping off the page. But imagine if she was that go-to player, Alicia, every single time. And I think maybe that is what's to come. But maybe that doesn't really matter. And maybe we're seeing a more balanced approach in some respects from these UConn squads, which I don't know. I go back and forth because I guess what I'm trying to say really is I don't know that it matters what her quote unquote role is, just her ability to score when needed, when necessitated, the ability to impact a game in any stretch of minutes is really something special.
It is. And you talked about her stats popping off the page. She helped UConn to the largest win in school history over Notre Dame, 85-47. All around dominance, leading UConn in 4 of 5 stat categories as a sophomore, and second on the team in the one that she isn't leading, which is an assist. So, I mean, you look at those numbers, you look at her play, you look at her leadership, how that's evolving, especially in this season. Definitely, I have seen just kind of a change in her voice and the way that she is even speaking about the game. All of those things are just indicators to me that, I mean, for sure, if she isn't the top, she'll be up there. She'll be up there for sure. I mean, on pace to become the first player in women's college basketball to average 60, 40, 90. I mean, her stats are insane. Her growth is insane, and her confidence has always been steady from day one. So definitely gonna keep watching Sarah Strong and all that she's doing, and we'll have more conversations about how she ranks in UConn for sure as she progresses in her career. Let's go to another team now. We're going to talk about Iowa. They're back into the top 10. Which honestly, it's been kind of like up and down for them, but right now they're back in the top 10 for the first time since the Caitlin Clark era. And actually, it's the first time under Jan Jensen that the team has cracked the top 10. To see what they've been doing and how they're growing. What do you think about this Iowa team and how far they can go this season?
I think it's huge. I mean, again, everything now is before and after Caitlin Clark for Iowa, and for some people for women's basketball, right? And so to see Jan Jensen, she started as, if I'm not mistaken, she started as a head coach at Iowa in the same year that was also her 25th season, either 25th or 26th season with the program. So this is someone who's seen a lot happen through this program, has been very dedicated to this program, and has known, again, the before Caitlin Clark, and that this was a program that the way you're able to capture someone like a Clark or a Stulke is because of what has come before, and Jensen was a part of that. And I've talked to her over the years, in the past few years, about just that, and she has a vision for what she wants, because the expectation and the standard for Iowa has been set forth for so many years. Again, the pop that we see is because of the Caitlin Clark era, but the foundational pieces that Coach Jensen tries to keep as part of the Hawkeyes program, are still there. And while that took a little bit of a dip, and Coach Jensen was, I mentioned UConn playing Iowa. After that game, she said after that loss, that it wasn't a good outing by her team. And it's the type of loss that then becomes what sets you on the trajectory to make the corrections that you need and to step into your stride. And I think that's exactly what we saw. That was almost exactly, a month ago in December, around December 20th, if I'm not mistaken. So we're seeing, with a little bit of holiday breaks in between and things of that nature, that her team was able to get back on course. And I love to see it. Let's not forget, now we're in conference play, right, Alicia? In a conference in the Big Ten, that's got some heavy hitters.
Oh, definitely some heavy hitters. And it's important to note with them, they're on a 6-game winning streak and undefeated so far in the Big Ten. Second behind UCLA, which is on an 11-game winning streak. There's big matchups coming up that will show, if this is cracking the top 10, if they should stay there or not, right? So they're going to have some challenges coming up. But, we talked about kind of like what the trajectory is, but what do you think the ceiling is for them this season? Sweet 16, Elite 8, Final Four?
I think for me, they could definitely be an Elite 8 team. I think they have the makeup. They have, again, like a Stolke who's been there. And I think that they can be an Elite 8 team. I think they have to push to another level if they want to get beyond that. And there's so many teams. I mean, Elite 8, I don't think is a guarantee, but definitely something that I could see this Hawkeyes program getting to. Again, their conference really helps steel them for what could be a very exciting NCAA tournament.
Definitely exciting. I'm thinking, we're going to talk a little bit later, some bracketology, but it's just so interesting because there's so many teams that I can see getting to those ceilings that we just talked about for Iowa. And it's going to be really interesting in this final stretch to see who prevails, because it's going to be exciting. I know March Madness is going to be something that I know I'm ready for it to start right now.
Hey,
truly.
Let's go. Let's go.
So we've been talking about a lot of teams. We talked about UConn and Iowa. Let's talk about some individual players. Erica, what's one player? I have one in mind, but what's one player that people need to be talking about more as we go into, this final stretch?
Yeah, there are a lot of players. Again, I think we've seen so many great team performances. And I will say I have a little bit of a bias. I have an A10 game coming up, so I've been focused on the A10 a lot. But another player who is a top 10 player in the nation, in the country, in scoring right now, someone who, dropped a 38 piece in a triple overtime game for Richmond, is Maggie Dugan, 23.2 points per game, averaging 51, 42, and 87 as her offensive output. So you talked about, that 60, 40, 90, right, for Sarah Strong. Well, Dugan's almost at 50, 40, 90. She just needs to, get that 87% up a little bit there from the free throw line. But this is a player for Richmond that has been solid, is on the watch list for, Becky Hammond Player of the Year, is on that midseason watch list, and just continues to make history within her conference. Not a team in Richmond that is going to pop for a lot of people, given some of the more established programs. The A10 conference, though, has fielded some teams in the last handful of years. George Mason won the tournament outright and got the bid, but you look at a team like Richmond, even Rhode Island, also coming from the A10, and what Dugan is able to do. I mean, she's at the top of the scout every time the Spiders take the court. So again, a little bit of a bias because I've got an A10 game coming up this weekend. We'll talk about a little bit later, but also again, a top 10 scorer in the nation.
Well, I'm going to say a name, and I love who you brought up for sure, because especially being at a school that does not get as much shine as like other schools do, the player that I'm going to say is getting some shine because her team is undefeated. That's Vanderbilt. She's leading that team, Mikayla Blakes. I mean, people are talking about Mikayla, definitely, but I don't think they're talking about her enough in these conversations. So I just want to say her name again. She's a major threat every time she's out there on the court, both offensively and defensively. She's averaging 25 points, 3.6 rebounds, 4.4 assists, 3.3 steals in 32.5 minutes of play. She's just a phenomenal player on and off the court, really. Not that we're talking about personalities or anything here, but she's a great person and a great player. And I just feel like while there's some conversation about her for sure, I think there should be more. So I would say Mikayla Blakes.
I think that's great. I think Vanderbilt overall, now that we are seeing the number dwindle down, right, as far as undefeateds, Vanderbilt and what Coach Ralph has been able to do is absolutely something that deserves more credit. I don't think you can talk about it enough at this point, given where we're at in the season.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But we are going to talk more about Vanderbilt a little bit later. But first, we have to go to a break. So we'll be right back.
This is European soccer's biggest stage.
Written in the stars! What a difference she has made!
The question is, can you handle it?
Can you handle it?
The crowd here feels electric. Stream every match of the UEFA Women's Champions League on Paramount Plus.
Okay, I know I said that we'd be talking about them a little bit later, but it's going to be right now. Right now. So we're going to talk about the best stories that we've seen in women's college basketball so far this season. And I'll lead off because we just talked about Vanderbilt just a little bit, but let's talk about Shea Ralph. Shea Ralph, who is coaching, obviously, for Vanderbilt. They're having the best start and longest winning streak in school history. And she was a player for Gino Auriemma, at UConn. So not only did she play with him from 1996 to 2001 and won a championship and was also named a most outstanding player while she was there. She was also an assistant coach for UConn. So she started in 2008 and won 6 national titles with the Huskies. Now, the reason why I'm saying all that is the other only undefeated team in women's college basketball is UConn. So it's just, I love that story because not only does it show you, just the dominance and influence of UConn for sure, how it builds players and coaches, right? But I just love the tie-in. I love that they're both undefeated. I love that Shea Ralph is undefeated right now and that her team is, and they're getting more of the buzz that they deserve as a team. And I don't know, I just love the overall story. And I think it's one that, is my favorite for sure. How about you?
Yeah, this is a great storyline for so many reasons. Again, another player that growing up watching UConn, I was very familiar with, has been with the program as an assistant, as you mentioned, but then also just looking at what she's been able to do at Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt has its history in women's basketball, but it'd been a while since they'd been able to reach, that peak. In fact, the 23-10 season that the Commodores had in year 3 under Shea Ralph was their first NCAA appearance since the 2013-14 season, and the 11-game and the 11-win swing, second largest win improvement from one season to the next in program history. So we've seen that this program has gotten better and better. And so, yes, the attention grab right now is the undefeated season, but also, we talked a little bit in the last segment about Mikayla Blakes, and under Ralph became, the first freshman of the year in program history. So it's a lot of different things that are happening here, and not surprising, right, that she's coming from that UConn Huskies, women's basketball tree. And we're not just talking about Gino Auriemma. I always like to mention Chris Daly as well, because
Absolutely.
they are really a 1-2 punch in how they're able to execute and what we see on the court as far as the motions and the different plays and how the game is run, but then the structure, a lot of the discipline that's been baked into UConn comes from CD in particular. And so a lot of times you hear former Huskies alumna, right, talk about that, and sometimes begrudgingly in what they could and could not do. But that discipline, and then being able to utilize that experience to create, or perhaps in this case, refine a culture, I find so fascinating. I love like leadership development and things of that nature. That's why I think coaching is so fascinating. And what Ralph is able to do here, there's a lot of trust. I think that she also has done such a great job uplifting women coaches in the space. I mean, you come from UConn, again, Gino is the pull and the draw there, but Shea Ralph has a lot of times gone out of her way to promote what I often call like the greater sisterhood of women's basketball. So I love those storylines as well. And so that it's all culminating in this season for Coach Ralph, I think is really exciting.
Yeah, and I think multiple colleges could do some type of documentary like this, but specifically because we're speaking about UConn and kind of like the influence that is happening there. I know that there's been, different pieces that have been done about the play, like on court. And I love those. But I think seeing what UConn women's basketball players have done since they played basketball there, like what they've accomplished and went on to do, would be so interesting. I don't know if it might be out there. Tell me. I haven't seen it.
I mean, I don't know, but I'm going to write this in my handy dandy notebook, because again, like, I just think it's so fascinating. We talked about Swin Cash earlier.
Exactly.
Sue Bird obviously did on the court, but now is taking that success. And again, like, yes, an attention to detail, but it's more than that. It's just an appreciation for people, the right people in the right place. I think that's something that I see translate very well outside of UConn, is that UConn players, from my eye test, are able to discern that. And I think it comes again from that 1-2 punch of their coaches, but then also that they were likely playing with, if not the best, among the best players in their recruitment class, but then above and below as well, as they were playing through their careers. Because, if you go to UConn, you stay at UConn for the most part. I mean, you stay and you stay for the time of your NCAA career. And so that consistency is something else. But yeah, I mean, we might have to see, we might have to do, some deep dives here on We Need to Talk Now podcast to get to the bottom of this and what the players say. But again, Shea Ralph having a fantastic season, and this is good for women's basketball. I remember not too long ago, we were talking about our blowouts good for the game and this, that, and the third. And sometimes it is it's a consequence of these programs just getting so big, getting more great coaches into women's basketball coaching. And I talked to a coach earlier today, and this concept of iron sharpens iron, I think that's what we're seeing at the coaches level, but that then trickles down right to the play. And we're seeing that it's that chess move and building up the IQ also of these players to be able to counter that. I mean, we talked a lot about Audie Crooks early, right? And now maybe a little bit of a chink in the chain, or the game plan is evolving to be able to stop what Crooks is so good at doing. And we talked about that when it comes to Hannah Hidalgo, and again, on and on and on. And just to see these masterminds of basketball, Shea Ralph being one of them, Neil Ivey, it's phenomenal to see.
It's definitely phenomenal to see. You want to know what else is phenomenal, Erica? Seeing some record-setting attendance in the PWHL.
Woo! Come on now.
There was an attendance record that happened at the DC stop.
Yes.
And listen, I'm still learning. We have talked about this, but I'm asking you as an expert, okay? Should DC get a team after getting this attendance record?
Honestly, who says no? Who says no? So the PWHL has done once again what's called a takeover tour, where they go to neutral sites. And so Washington D.C. has not had a women's hockey team in any of the most recent iterations. I'd have to pull back into my hockey bag to see, because women's barnstorming leagues have existed even in hockey. But definitely for the modern era, we have not seen a team. That being said, you have Haley Skamura, who's on Team USA, who has roots and ties, including through her father, in the DC area. We see, again, a record-setting crowd here. The Washington Capitals we're on hand here. And so I think that, yeah, absolutely, the nation's capital deserves a women's hockey team. Really just more women's teams, right? We gotta have the Spirit and the Mystics have another winter counterpart here. So I love it. It was super exciting. Got a little bit tussly at the end of this game between Montreal and the New York Sirens, Montreal Victoire, which is a Canada-based team, and the New York Sirens just up the Metro North, or up 95. But yeah, I mean, exciting time for women's hockey. I think there are a lot of different markets that they're testing, but when you get a record in your first go round, I think it's safe to say that you should definitely be on the short list, and that is DC. As far as give them a team, we saw Coach Jackie was at this game. That was exciting.
I mean, listen, 17,228 fans, and you got fans chanting, "We want a team" in the final seconds.
Come on.
As the chippiness and the fighting was breaking out, apparently.
Come on. Yeah, it definitely got chippy. And
I love
unfortunately, that. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it is great. Again, I have a super hot, I think, scalding hot take with regard to physicality in women's hockey, and allowing them to quote unquote fight is kind of the equivalent to lowering the rims for me. So if you know, listen, I'll put it this way, right? Dunks, we know women's hoopers can dunk, right? Lowering the rim is not going to, it doesn't change the fact that women's basketball players can dunk as of now. Same thing in hockey. Women's hockey is already physical. Changing the rules in that way is such a catch to a very specific audience that I don't think women's sports necessarily always has to chase, is how I will say it.
I know that's right. In the chat, say what your hot take is on this, because we want to know. We want to know. And while you're at it too, by the way, subscribe, like, and do all the things. We didn't talk about this, but we need to stay connected with you, because we're going to be talking all about these attendance setting records and all the things that we talk about. So you want to be locked in. But let's continue to talk about hockey, because apparently there was a 4-game suspension with Taylor Girard, and there is a lot of talk about it. Apparently left the bench to join an altercation after the final buzzer in New York's 2-1 win over Montreal. Yep. Girard crashed into Montreal defender Maggie Flaherty, excuse me, my bad. I'm learning, y'all. I already told you. From behind, and knocked her to the ice. The skirmish resulted in 8 players, 4 from each team, being issued 10-minute misconducts. So Girard, did I say it wrong?
No, I'm just laughing because because the game was over, right? So you get these misconducts, and it's like, fam, you gonna put them in the box now?
True story.
That's what made me laugh.
Girard was the only player to receive additional 20-minute penalties for leaving the bench. So under league rules, the first player to leave the bench illegally faces an automatic 4-game suspension. Yep. So when you look at all of this that is happening, are you good with the 4-game suspension? Like, what are your thoughts?
Oh, wow. Listen, let's first say that every sport that I'm aware of, certainly in basketball, right, which is the sport probably I know best outside of hockey at this point, every sport, or again, the WNBA has a rule that if there is something that gets a little funky on the court and you leave the bench to participate, that it's very clear.
Yeah.
It's a penalty or in hockey, or it's a suspendable offense for a reason, a finable offense for a reason, because they don't want to encourage that. So on the one hand, that's where this is coming from. But when you think of, this is still a relatively, it is a new league. The season is shorter than especially what we see in the MNHL, right, where they're playing 80 some odd games a season. And to lose a player like Taylor Girard, who can be extremely good for this New York Sirens team on special teams. So that means usually she's been used when the team is shorthanded or they received a penalty, so they're playing one skater down. But she also historically in her pro career has been really good on the power play, which is when the team is up a player, so their opponent has been assessed a penalty. And when you look at how this league goes, you need to be able to get as many points as possible. Again, this was a 1-goal game that we're talking about. So with all of that, it just was like, whoa, 4 games. And we talking about you left the bench, not because of any haymakers thrown or what was said, but just as soon as that skate hit the ice, it was an immediate 4 games. That's brutal.
It is. Well, especially when you look at the league's longest suspension was 2 games earlier, right? And the game was over at this point from what we're talking about.
Yeah. It's tough. Yeah, that was Aneta Terelova, who's an Olympian, going to play for Team Czechia. And that was on a hit that was likely a retaliatory hit. The contact, though, was super high. And also, if I'm not mistaken, involved, I think it was Casey O'Brien. So that would have involved New York. So New York always finds themselves in these spicy situations. But Girard, that's tough. That's a really tough loss. This is a young, scrappy New York team that they either through expansion and not protecting certain players or through trades in the free agency at the draft, they made a lot of moves and they kept Girard on this team for like a younger core, letting go of even former Olympians to be able to establish what they are now, young, scrappy, fast, physical team. And now you lose Girard. That's tough. It's tough. Again, you get that they want to make an example, do not leave the bench. That being said, I mean, they were going to leave the bench anyway. The game is over. So like, what is the curve? Do you get a 30-second window from the last buzzer to hit the ice? I don't know. I mean, now I'm just being a little ridiculous, but it seems like a lot. Even if I can get into the headspace that the reason that it's a pretty high penalty is because they want to, again, not or I should say they do want to make a habit of people, or an example, of people coming off the bench and to get the message across. No, we don't play these games.
And I get to a certain extent of making an example out of somebody, examples, people can impose them on certain people. There's levels of making someone an example that we could totally I'm sure we'll probably talk about that in the future, right? Because it can be very unfair the way that they make examples about people. But for this, when you see the longest suspension was 2 games prior and you do 4, that's
Double
more
that
than
up.
making an example. And especially in this instance, when it was at the game and it's like, well, when can they leave the bench? Like there's questions.
Yeah.
So it's like, you don't make an example out of somebody when there's a question about how it even happened in the first place, right? Or like the timing of it, or when it happened, right? I don't know. I just feel like maybe this was the wrong time to make an example out of somebody if you're gonna do it. But
listen,
4 games, that's rough. That's rough.
Tough.
But
that's tough for sure.
Yeah, she'll definitely, have to make the most of her time when she's on a break. And right now we're actually gonna go on another break. So we'll see you right after this.
When you need your sports news all the time,
We've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ, streaming free anywhere you are.
Well, those little breaks, they get me hyped. I don't know if it's the music. I don't know who produced those, but they do a great job.
Well done.
But one thing we're going to get hyped about this week are some matchups, but we're going to talk about those in our favorite segment of the week, and that is our guarantee of the week presented by AT&T. Now, Erica, there's a lot of games happening this weekend, okay? A lot of great games happening this weekend, but we want to know, I already have mine in mind, but we want to know what your guarantee of why you should watch a certain game would be this weekend with all of the amazing slate of games that we have.
Listen, we've got some great games, and I told y'all I'm focused on A10, and for good reason, because your girl is going to be the analyst for Rhode Island at Dayton, 2 p.m. on Sunday, January 25th.
Come on, Erica.
Let's go. So the A10 for the last 2 seasons, I've been doing our media days, and we have specific packages that we run, including this year we ran a package on motherhood and being a mom and a head coach in the A10. So many amazing examples, including Tamika Williams-Jeter, who is the head coach of Dayton. So I'm super excited for that one. Rhode Island is looking like a force this year for sure. So Dayton's got their work cut out for them. But outside of, again, my very personal locked in on Sunday, January 25th, I mean, we got to go back to some of these undefeated teams. Well, there's only the couple now, right? But Vanderbilt taking on South Carolina. I alluded to this a little earlier. We talked a lot about Shea Ralph on today's episode, but Shea has always been very complimentary of Dawn Staley and the place that she holds in women's basketball. And that's saying a lot, again, coming from a person who knows the UConn program and Gino and Chris Daly so well. But this is going to be a really great matchup. I think Vanderbilt gets to a different level. The conversation goes to a different level if they can find a way to get a win here. But it ain't going to be easy. We know that for sure. Not when you're going up against Dawn Staley and the South Carolina Gamecocks.
Yeah, that's definitely would be my pick is that game right there. I really hope they get to play it though, because I was looking and there's like 70% chance of freezing rain in Columbia.
Yeah.
And that's actually going to hit on Saturday. The game's on Sunday, but a lot of people are like, is this even going to happen? I hope it does, because that's some basketball we need to watch for sure. I mean, there's actually been a lot of rescheduling of games I have seen. I believe UConn already rescheduled a game, if I'm not mistaken. Seton Hall, I can't remember exactly what it was, but I think I just don't remember a lot of rescheduling of games in the past. So Mother Nature's doing her thing.
Yeah,
but I hope, like, I'm talking to you now, Mother Nature, can we get this game on Sunday? Because I definitely want to watch that for sure.
Yes, the good of all and the harm of none. Let's put that out there. Yeah, because I think to your point, these are big games. We have seen, again, I'm looking at that A10 schedule, see if they've already scheduled some games, but it's that time of year, right? And you want, another part of that is you want everyone to be safe, of course, first and foremost. And I mean, again, this is our guarantee for a reason. You want the energy, you want the vibes of the fans that are just ready to cheer. So hopefully everything gets worked out. But yeah, man, listen, but I mean, a great slate also. I mean, we talked about Iowa, right? That's going to be another good game. The Ohio State University 2 6-game win streaks on the line. And again, where can this Iowa team go? I think for them, they really have to show they can master their conference play. So that's another game. Again, all of the games are must watch at this point is basically what we're saying. And there's the ones that you absolutely want to lock in, because I think they impact how these teams are going to be talked about when it comes to the NCAA tournament.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of the NCAA tournament, we're going to be talking some bracketology. It feels like it's early, but Emma actually pointed it out to us that it's right around the corner. Actually,
I was like, "It's so early. What are we doing?" Emma was like, "Child, there's like a month left."
Yeah. She was like, "It's actually not." So, but the top 4 seeds: UConn #1 overall, followed by UCLA, South Carolina, and Texas. The Huskies were unanimous #1 in the poll this week. And that's, I mean, I don't think anyone's arguing that. 2 seeds, Vanderbilt, LSU, Iowa, and Louisville. The 3 seeds, Michigan, Michigan State, Kentucky, Ohio State. 4 seeds, Texas Tech, Baylor, Maryland, TCU. The last 4 in, Utah, Iowa State, South Dakota State, and Clemson. And the first 4 out, Richmond, BYU, Auburn, and Virginia. So when you look at this bracketology that has been dropped, do you have any issues, Eric?
You know, again, this is not the end all be all. There's still more games to play. So these are effectively mocks, right? But for me, what stood out is you look at Texas Tech. I think now they've dropped 2, right, on the season, but a team that for a long stretch was undefeated, that the best we're seeing in this mock-up is a 4 seed. I don't know, that's kind of wild to me. Richmond, first 4 out. I mean, obviously I talked about Maggie Dugan and what could potentially come from the A10. So I have a little A10 theme here on today's episode.
As you should.
I mean, that's what the
You're
prep
immersed in it right now.
That's where the prep has me. No, but I think for me, am I gonna, like, you know, be on you know, some kind of picket line or, you know, out canvassing to have some of these teams maybe positioned a little bit different? No. And I think it goes to the conversations, Alicia, that we've been having just about how teams are ranked weekly, even in the power rankings, how some of their wins or losses, for that matter, are weighted comparative to other teams. And it's just interesting that a team that for so long was undefeated, you know, is looking at a 4 seed. I think something else that stands out is, you know, Louisville in that 2 seed. I think that speaks to how they've been able to turn things around as of late, because, you know, Louisville is a team that I think in the past few years has kind of been up and down. And I think they probably want a little more continuity. Iowa, we talked about earlier, Vanderbilt as well. And LSU, I think on our last episode, we talked about how they got some pretty significant wins and how that helps, right? When you are of the ilk, right, of LSU, you're a program that's well known and you're able to play well against other top teams. That's really boded well for them, is boding well for them when it comes to here. Finally, you know, I was like, early in the season, I was like, ooh, okay, y'all. I said I'm rocking with UCLA. I liked what I heard at Media Day. I also, so A10 Media Day and Big Ten Media Day, the last 2 years I've covered for CBS Sports. And I was like, I believe in UCLA. That, you know, the what was it, the 14 consecutive weeks, however many consecutive weeks at number 1 in the poll. That was last year, but what can they do in this campaign? And I think that it's been a little more subdued, maybe not as much energy or as much pull, certainly, as they did last year, but they're getting it done. And Lauren Betts has a lot to do with that. You know, Sienna Betts getting back and getting integrated is huge for them. So not surprised, although I was maybe a little nervous earlier in the season about UCLA, but they're getting it together.
Yeah, I definitely was when I went and watched them play early in the season. I was like, don't know if this is the same team. I voiced that on here, and I stand by what I said at the time. But, you know, you said a lot of the things that I would say. I don't want to just reiterate what you said, but I think what gets me excited the most when I see this is just, I want March Madness to be here, like with the quickness, but also the top 4 teams have been locked in in. We know who they are. They've been steady. You know, a loss here or there, but like nothing that would make them fall out of that top 4.
Yeah.
But really below that, there is no guarantees. Like, these teams are not playing around, okay? No. At all. And so I really think by the time we get there, we're going to see a lot, like after those first 4, we're going to see a lot of different, like we will see a far different bracketology, you know, than we have right now. And it's by no means are any of those locked in as far as I'm concerned underneath those 4.
Yeah, I think Michigan and Ohio State have the capacity to play like Wreck-It Ralph here, right? And really be disruptors one way or another. Right now, Michigan in that 3 seed over, and this is the bracketology from CBSSports.com. So make sure you head over to CBSSports.com and check it out, our women's basketball bracketology. But yeah, I think, even Maryland and Baylor, TCU, again, the kind of weight that they had last year dwindled a little bit, but I think they're right in that mix, right, of teams that you cannot take for granted 100%. So, but I do think there's even among these teams, there can absolutely be some movement here.
Yeah, and we were looking at Iowa State too. We talked a little bit about Iowa State, and them being on the bubble. They lost 5 consecutive games, which is really tough, right? We saw dominance, especially from Audie Crooks, at the beginning of the year, and there was a lot of buzz around them. But when you lose 5 consecutive games, like that doesn't look good for you. It's not good, and in the fashion that they lost as well, I think is something to look at. Before they just won against Cincinnati, and Jada Williams dropped 44 points. We definitely need to see more of that, but unfortunately, that's where they should, in my opinion, after dropping 5 consecutive, in the way that they did, they're at the right spot, but it doesn't mean they can't come up, just like we're talking about with everybody else.
Exactly. Not the end all be all. So what can the Cyclones do now? Can they really fix things? And the exposure on the defensive side, I think, is where we're seeing teams start to slide a little, but other teams, their game planning and their scout is what has them rising up.
Yeah, I mean, they're adjusting to Audie Crooks. Jada Williams, like, we need that 44 points, not maybe 44. That's kind of hard, but we need that type of play from her continuously. And we know she can do it, right?
Yeah.
And just more support. We talked about that earlier with Iowa State. It really was Audie. It was her show, and
what a show, right?
Yeah, for sure.
What a show it's been.
She's a very talented player for sure, but a team can't rest on one person alone.
100%. Yeah, that's just not where the game is right now, for all of the reasons that we've said on this episode and episodes past. I mean, yes, again, you're getting those performances from players like Sarah Strong, and it's not just that UConn has at the arsenal. And it's all of the things that are done on what some people say, not me, the non-sexy defensive side. Again, that is where we're seeing this movement. I mean, I just have heard. I've heard. I don't say that.
I'm not trying to hear it at all.
Okay, period. So not we.
Yeah.
The collective we outside of this podcast, maybe, but not you and I, we.
Well, I'm sure that all of you have opinions, whether it be on defense or bracketology, right? So make sure you drop those in the comments. Stay connected to us on every single level. Subscribe, like, comment, do all of the things. And we're going to be back on time next week. Well, actually, Emma, we're not going to be on time because we have a live show on CBS Sports Network, and it's on Thursday, Emma? Yes, it's on Thursday. I know my schedule. What we talking about? So it will be on Thursday, so make sure to catch us on that live show at 12 p.m. Eastern time, and we'll have it up for you on YouTube after that if you miss it. But try and catch us live on CBS Sports Network. But until then, keep watching basketball. Watch Erica this Sunday. What time is it, Erica?
Sunday, it's going to be 2 p.m. on CBS Sports Network, 2 p.m. Eastern.
You better be locked in. I'm like that on social where I'm like, you better watch her. You know what I'm saying? We need but watch us.
Women. Let's go.
Okay. But watch us on everything. Stay locked in with us, and we'll be back right here on We Need to Talk Now, presented by AT&T.